Hello, welcome back to the internet once again. You know, this might be the last regular story video I have for a little while because starting this weekend I'm going to be doing just a whole bunch of scary story videos leading up to Halloween. I'll be back to these videos in early November, but let's finish it off with a pretty long video. Parents refuse to pay me back $500 they owe me. So a common thing to happen to my family is my parents demanding me to buy them stuff off Amazon because, well, they are entitled. I have Amazon Prime, so I understand using my account. However, they also make me use my debit card to pay for stuff, and eventually do pay me back. Still, it's incredibly annoying. It's never been a huge amount of money, but this time around, it was a set of chairs worth $500. I first rejected the idea, mostly given that I'm still in college and only made it $10 an hour at the time. $500 was about a fourth of the money I had in my bank account at the time. I told my entitled mom this, and she went off on me, claiming I don't love her and that I don't trust her to pay me back, and begins to cry. You know, basic parental manipulation tactics. I comply and buy her the chairs, and I'm out $500. She then tells me she will pay me back in about 3 days when my father gets paid. 3 days later, still no money. To avoid a fight, I just bite my tongue. Then a week passes, and then another week. After about 2 weeks of not being paid, I was incredibly pissed off. I also worked almost every night this summer at a customer service job, so naturally, I want to relax on my days off. Cue my parents that decide we need to deep clean the entire house. I'm helping, and then I receive an email about an interview for an internship that I've been working hard to accomplish. I'm reading the email, and that's when it happened. My mom says, "So are you going to do any work or just sit on your butt all day?" So me, pissed off, saying, "Really? You're going to say that after I bought those chairs for you?" My dad says, "You ungrateful son of a bee, I pay for your college." I say, "I'm not doing anything until you pay me back the $500. So my mom, now crying, "You're so disrespectful, after everything we've done for you." So, some fun details. My parents actually don't pay for my college. All the loans are in my name. My father's ego was hurt after bringing up that fact. I threatened to return the chairs, which only caused more fights. Long story short, I had to literally tattle on my father to my grandmother to get my money back. And they now have their chairs. This is a normal thing, and I really see myself going no contact in the future. You know, I've actually never had anyone try the manipulative tactic on acting like I don't care about them because I'm not spending money on them. Maybe it's because people who know me realize that that probably would never work on me. Revenge by the cat. I went to an out-of-state college in the fall of 1987. I spent the last few semesters away at college with a roommate in an apartment rather than in a dorm. It was cheaper and a lot more fun. Over my last summer, my roommate met a guy. I thought he was a major loser. He was constantly berating my roommate for things she did in our apartment. He drank non-stop vodka, whiskey, or Everclear. I don't think I ever saw the guy not acting like a fool. There was a stray cat in the complex who followed me inside one day. He became my cat for a while. This cat loathed the boyfriend. One morning, I'm awoken by the most horrific scream. The roommate and her boyfriend had a 2-hour screaming match the night before. Apparently the cat didn't like that. He vomited in her shoes and her boyfriend's shoes. Then he came in to snuggle with me. The loser boyfriend wanted to kill the cat over a pair of shoes or two. I told him that I would neuter him if he came near the cat. I also told him to stop being mean and the cat would stop. After all, the cat never vomited on or near me or any of my stuff. Over the course of that year, my roommate and her loser went through a ton of shoes, several backpacks, many shirts left on the floor, and even the occasional random dish of food left sitting for 30 to 45 seconds. All because of Ralph Kitty. He was an overall very sweet kitty. He didn't jump on counters. He would come supervise me in the shower so that the horrible boyfriend couldn't sneak in to watch me shower. He was super snuggly with me, and he adored my boyfriend. The guy I dated around that time wasn't a cat person, but he loved playing with Ralph Kitty. One of their favorite things to do was for my boyfriend to blow bubbles over the railing while the cat was down in the courtyard chasing them. This drove my roommate and her boyfriend nuts, because the cat just refused to do anything with them other than sneak food, vomit, and give them nasty glares. Of course, I gave him treats for being mean to the loser boyfriend. The absolute worst episode of revenge was right after I took the cat to the vet. He was a long-haired cat, so he had hairballs. The main way to treat hairballs? A laxative. The vet dosed him with a laxative, and I drove him home as fast as I could. I left notes and also told my roommate and her boyfriend that the cat needed to stay locked in my bedroom until the medicine was done in 12 to 24 hours. I even told them what the medicine was and how it worked. They let the cat out and tried to snuggle with him, locked in my roommate's room. Who on earth would do that with a cat that just had a laxative? The reason he was put into my room was that he always used the litter box in my room. Of course, the medicine worked about 2 hours into my roommate's nap. Ralph Kitty even started it right where she put him, under her covers. I came home to her entire room reeking of cat poop, and my roommate trying to blame me for the cat crapping under her covers. I showed her the reminders to not let the cat out, reminded roommates that I told her not to do that, and then asked her what kind of fool tries to snuggle on her bed with the cat who just had a large dose of laxative. She ended up sleeping on the floor for a couple weeks until she managed to get a new mattress. Well, I didn't want to pull the cat out of her bed, so I just brought the bed over here. I don't know if it's malicious, but she has puked hairballs on my bed a few times recently. I've just washed my sheets twice in the last week. But she doesn't even care. Did you just cut in line? So I work at a coffee shop. I won't say which, but it's exactly the one someone would think of immediately when they hear coffee shop. At least in the US. Anyway, I'm manning the register. The second register person is fixing up something else behind me, and the drink-making coworker is busy making drinks, obviously. So there are 3 of us. There's a line of about 4 to 6 people from what I notice in my periphery, the moment before the scene begins. A bit of context. I'm in Hawaii and work in a hotel. Yes, the coffee shop is in the hotel. So 99% of my customers are tourists/off-islanders. This means I get people from nations all over, or within, the Pacific Rim, including East Asia, Australia, North America, etc. Now, certain countries have certain cultures, which means they are fundamentally different than the US in the most denotative way I can describe. And despite coming to the US and knowing that we are culturally different than their country, they still act like their country's lower, different standards are okay, or unproblematic. On to the story. So I'm helping a lady of a certain nationality, which is evident by her heavy accent. Working in the shop for 4 years, working in Waikiki for 8 years, and living in Hawaii for almost 30, it's practically innate to immediately know someone's ethnicity/nationality from their accent alone. I've barely taken any notice to who is next in line, as I'm focusing on primarily the customer ahead of me. I finish up her order, which ends up taking my gaze away from the front-face visual, and possibly notice some new customers immediately behind her that may have walked in from the wrong way. I take note of this, as cutting in line is just a plausible and realistic thing that just happens in life, and more so happens with people of their nationality, by my own personal small but 8-year-long sample size. These 2 new ladies are the same nationality as the customer I am currently finishing up. I point the lady towards the pickup area, as people of her age don't usually know how this works, and she shuffles along. As the 2 ladies approach the register, before I even had the chance to call them forward, if I intended to, I put my hand up to say something along the lines of, "Did you 2 just walk in from this way?" Gesturing the opposite direction of the line. You have to wait in line and let these other people go first. I make eye contact with the next 2 customers, Americans, based on their clothes and posture. They look a little pissed and are looking at the ladies, definitely evidence. I turn back towards the ladies. The one in front looks a little flustered now, and the one behind starts speaking. We're with her. She points out the previous customer waiting for her drink, and isn't even looking this way, as if she had zero actual relationship to these ladies or this situation. Noting that the behind lady didn't actually answer the question, textbook deflection. I looked again at the Americans with my eyebrows slightly raised, as if asking for their input, but they were pretty fixed on staring daggers at these women now. I look back towards the ladies. The front one is even more thrown, not even making eye contact anymore, and the back lady tries to fix it up by saying, "I not here, my friend was in the line though," and walks away, leaving her guilt-ridden friend to take the brunt of anything else I'd do. I turn to my coworker and tap on her shoulder, as she wasn't aware of the situation, and go, "Hey, can you ring the next few customers up real fast?" Then in a lowered voice, "There's an incident." I continued, implying that I would tell her later so I could cause less of a scene and enact more of an immediate fix to the situation. I'm not super confrontational until push comes to shove, and this wasn't one of those moments. So I chose compliance over outright revenge, or public freak-outing. I started taking the lady's order. She seemed a bit guilty, and I'll admit this is what made me choose to be less vengeful. But I still lean more towards the, if you don't speak up, you're part of the problem. So I chose to ring her up very slowly, asking her to repeat a few things she didn't say loud enough, forgetting something once or twice, and ultimately doing everything physical in a slower manner while my coworker rung up the line quickly. Eventually it timed out nicely that by the time I finished her whole order, the entire line was rung up and their drink orders were in queue. So I simply placed her 2 cups down at the end of the queue, as that's just when I happened to have finished her order, and put a smiley face instead of asking for her name. As the compliance was set in motion, out of my hands now, I restocked a bit, keeping an eye on the 2 ladies. The guilty one was off to the side, looking away, as the brash one stood front and center, at the handoff point, expecting the next drink to be hers. Then the next drink, then the next drink, as the actual drink owners had to maneuver their arms around her to grab theirs. The Americans actually asked her to step aside, which made them smile and her frown more. Eventually, they got their whole order, after every other customer had been served and left, and the brash woman looked like she was fuming from impatience, and they walked out. They didn't even glance at their friend, the first customer sitting with her family, still showing no sign of knowing the other two ladies. Man, it's almost kind of sad just how hard the author had to try to keep this politically correct. Just because of how many absolute savages there are around the internet that are just waiting to pounce on anything that can be slightly deemed as racist. But hey, it's a pretty good response. If somebody cuts in line and places their order, you just place their order at the very end of the line. Ex-wife tells me to take handling the kids more seriously. So I did. So I'm a happily divorced dad of 2 beautiful kids, a 5-year-old girl and almost a 4-year-old son. My ex and I met in my home state of Illinois. She was a Navy brat, so her family is from Texas. We fell in love very quickly, got married after a year, and was expecting my daughter after 3 months. My son followed almost 4 to 6 months after my daughter was born. A month after he was born, I found out she was cheating on me with at least 5 guys. Later found out it was around 8. Obviously, I filed for divorce. I got the lawyer, changed my banking accounts, and presented her with papers. The first copy was rejected for a reason I can't quite remember. Upon revision, I had my lawyer also change the custody from me having the kids every other weekend to every single weekend. Much to his surprise, she signed it. We shared the kids accordingly. She was super pissed, but there was nothing she could do about it. And when she and I could no longer afford to live in the state, she moved back to Texas. Fast forward 2 years without seeing the kids. I couldn't afford to see them except on one Christmas. I got out of the Navy, moved back home, and I got the kids for 3 months. I was appalled by their development delays. Both kids were rated in the bottom 5% of kids their age. My daughter didn't have a clue about potty training at 3, barely speaking, and had no awareness of adult authority. My son was not even close to walking. Nonverbal, wouldn't eat most meats, and was afraid of grass. When I returned them, my daughter would listen to adults, was potty trained and speaking in almost complete sentences. My son was walking, saying some words and hand signals, and eating a variety of different foods. I worked my butt off to get them there. Also spent a lot on 2 times a week therapy for both the kiddos. Money well spent. Anyway, I stayed in Illinois for about 1.5 to 2 years, gathering up enough money to move to Texas. I had a little amount saved, but I started dating a girl who I came to find out was also wanting to move to Texas. So we pooled our money together and moved down. We got down to Texas and lived out of hotels for around a month. Found jobs, found a place to move in. I worked in a sales position in a large bulk type store, and my girlfriend works in a sandwich place. At this time, my ex and I are not going by the divorce decree custody days, because of convenience. Well, a person ended up quitting the job, and I had to take their hours, so my girlfriend got permission to bring my kids to her work. Well, they were being toddlers, and she texted a mutual friend of my ex and me, asking if she could watch their kids for a few hours. They got sent to my ex and new hubby got pissed, and they came to my work and chewed me out, saying that I need to take the kids' well-being more seriously. Roger that, effers. Now I realized I messed up that day. I was not mad at what they said. I was pissed at the fact they did that in front of my trainee, a customer, and coworkers. MaliciousCompliance/revenge. During my setup phase, I was not paying my full child support, which was kind of them, but that ended because I was now taking things more seriously. The next morning I talked to my boss, told him what happened, and informed him that I could not work at the time specified on my divorce decree because now that I am taking things seriously, I will now have the kids every weekend. I then transferred my ex the remainder of the child support, informed her that she was right and that I needed to take things more seriously, so I will be by after work to pick up the kids right after work for my court-appointed custody. She was confused, but agreed. Then I called her on a Friday evening to see if she had everything prepared for the weekend stay. She flipped out, saying that they had plans all day Saturday and church Sunday morning, and she screamed, "Why are you making these demands all of a sudden?" "Well, I'm just taking the kids and our arrangements more seriously." I ended up letting them have the kids Saturday and pick them up Sunday morning. I then informed my ex and hubby that we would need at least a week's notice for any changes in plans on weekends, in case we had things planned. Generally, if they wanted to do something special with the kids if I didn't have plans, even at last minute. Since I was taking things more seriously, my girlfriend and I kept very meticulous records of any injury, diaper rash, rash on my daughter from not wiping correctly, and physical appearance upon pickup. We would treat said rashes, note any changes in our little black book, then take a photo of the pages with a timestamp. When they returned, we would then note any worsening of any rash, injury, or non-treatment. We also signed the kids up for more therapy, since they are still very much behind. This went on for a few months until, surprise, my ex had had enough and brought me to court to force the changes she wanted. I presented the judge with everything. The doctor's notes I had from day one, the doctor's notes from my ex with conflicting information. These notes were everything she would tell the state-funded therapist for my son, as well as all the expenses for the therapies I was giving my kids. Then I showed her our notes, the printed timestamp photos, and the many times any rashes would be present, or worse, when we got the kids. My ex broke down into tears since she brought her entire family and several friends for support. The increase in child support she wanted was shot down, and instead was almost halved, since I was making less than I was prior. The expenses I had for the kids, and my overall time with the kiddos. The change in custody she so desperately wanted? Well, the judge ordered it to stay the same, with the charge of alternating Sundays. Walking out, she asked me through tears, "How could you do this to me?" To which I replied, "I was taking things with the kids seriously." Man, divorces sound like such a mess. You better spend a lot of time and be very sure that the person that you are about to marry is not going to be a complete piece of garbage. Man, these stories have all been so long, I can't believe we still have one more. Do you know who I am? And you're fired, until they realize their terrible mistake. Firstly, this didn't happen to me. I was with the person when they received a phone call about this issue. Then he explained it all to me. So listed buildings. Important to the story. In the UK, there is a system for preserving ancient and important buildings. If the building has historical importance, it is known as a listed building, and the rules about how it's developed / maintained / improved are very strict. I need to be vague about the work involved, otherwise it's too easy to identify the parties involved. So my friend David is skilled in a very niche area of construction. He repairs and renovates buildings using a very old construction method that hasn't been common for several centuries. All his work is on the conservation projects and listed buildings. Well, work was required on a Grade 1 listed property. The overall building work was being done by the main contractor, ACC Ltd. One part of the work is very specialized. The contractor's manager didn't know anyone who did it, so the architect gave them a list of qualified people. The contractors chose my friend because he was the earliest available. 5 days into the work, the owner of ACC Ltd., the main contractor company, arrived on site. He was throwing his weight around and being a noisy gobshite. David was just doing his job and ignored him. The noisy gobshite told one of the carpenters to get him a coffee. The carpenters disappeared. The guy continued wandering and gobbing off about delays, costing him a fortune. 15 minutes after the carpenter had disappeared, the guy asked my friend a question. Says, "Where's that freaking chippy with my coffee?" As in carpenter. David says, "Don't know." He says, "Go and find him." He says, "I'm only here for this job," pointing to the walls. "I don't work for you." He says, "I don't give a crap whether you're an employee or a subcontractor. You still work for me. Now go and find my freaking coffee." He says, "Firstly, I don't appreciate being talked to like that. And secondly, my contract with you is to do these walls. Nothing more. I'm definitely not a gopher." He says, "Oh, you don't appreciate being talked to like that, do you? Which subcontractor do you work for?" He says, "None. I'm self-employed. It's just me." He says, "A friggin' day laborer? And you've got the nerve to talk to me like that? Do you know who I am?" He says, "Yep." He says, "Well, you're friggin' fired. Get off this site now." He says, "Okay, put it in writing." He says, "F off. Just get off the friggin' site." He pulled his phone out and started recording. He says, "Okay, I'll go. Just want proof you told me to go." The guy grabbed David's hand holding the phone and screamed into the phone, "Get off the site, you friggin' idiot. You're fired. If you're still here in 10 friggin' minutes, I'll have you friggin' thrown out." He says, "Cool, no problem." He picked up all of his kit and walked away. As he was leaving, the contractor's site manager passed him, ironically with a coffee for the boss, and with a smile said, "You leaving early, Dave? Bloody part-timers." He says, "No, your boss just fired me. Our contract is ended. Sorry, mate." He says, No. Let me sort this out. Wait, please, wait." David left. The site manager was losing his crap because he knew something that the noisy gobshite didn't. Only 7 people in the UK are qualified to do the work. They all have a waiting list, and David had been the only one available. By the time he was home, he had 12 missed calls. That was Thursday. 2 working days missed so far. He said he'll go back, but only if he gets paid for the extra days, and has a genuine apology in person from the boss. I met my friend when he was getting a call from the site manager, saying the boss apologizes but is out of the country, so can't apologize face to face. David also told me he'd phoned the other specialists to warn them, but they'd all been phoned on Friday, begging them to do the job. Nobody took the work. They're all booked solid. David also phoned the architect to warn him. Situations like this, unscrupulous contractors try to bodge the job and fake the work. David is going to stick to his guns. Pay for all missed days plus face-to-face apology. He's sure he'll get it. I've said I'll pay anything to watch the face-to-face apology. And then an update saying, the site manager phoned to say that he was told by the noisy gobshite to threaten legal action if David doesn't help finish the job. David reminded him that he had to leave and his proof was that he was fired. The site manager phoned again to say the guy will apologize face-to-face on Friday. Can David start tomorrow? David said no, following the threat of legal actions, and the conditions are different. Number 1, face-to-face apology before work restarts. Number 2, added pay for wasted days. Number 3, payment of full contract value up front before work starts. And 4, all that must happen by Thursday, which is the last day he can start and still expect to finish before his next booking. If he also works the weekends, he has just enough time. I asked him why he isn't charging a huge extra amount for the guy being such a wanker. He said it doesn't look good if you take advantage of companies when they're under time pressure. Not the done thing. It seems that one of my friends is an 18th century gentleman. And a correction, I misunderstood David when he said that only 7 others do this work. He meant 7 other businesses apart from his. They're small businesses, so he says it's probably about 20 people who can do it. Still a small number, but not as comically small as 7. Sorry for misleading you about the number. Well, talk about being in high demand, and probably getting paid a lot if you're in a line of work like that. That's like the dream scenario if you can be that valuable for everybody. Alright, well this video's gone on super long, and we still have a pretty short question. Teachers of Reddit, what is the most stupid answer someone has ever given on an exam? A college English professor here thought the dumbest exam answer I ever saw came from one of my fellow TAs in a huge lecture hall film class, back when I was still a grad student. For some unfathomable reason, one of the students decided to answer the written final exam in the form of a poem that didn't even begin to answer any of the exam questions, nor did it reference any of the movies we watched in class, which he had to pick from for the answers, but instead just threw in references to whatever random movies he could work into the rhyme scheme. And even setting all that aside, the student still had zero talent for poetry. I don't know what the heck he was thinking, but my friend decided to generously give the student a 20% for bothering to show up, and at least write something down. You guys know the saying, it's like, don't dress for the job you have, dress for the job you want. Maybe this guy was taking that whole saying to heart, and was thinking like, don't work under the conditions of the assignment that was given to you. Instead, just complete the assignment you wish they gave you. My dad once told me about one of his students complaining she missed a point because the topic of the question was covered in the class. The question? Can you get pregnant from a handshake? He was teaching freshman med students. Well, we have no documented cases of anyone getting pregnant from a handshake, but maybe one day we will. Who was considered America's founding father? George W. Bush. Hey, George W. founded America in the year 2000. Just the other day, the question asked the learners to explain the myth in the passage. Answer? A myth is a female moth. And I just sort of looked at this answer for a while, before realizing the extent of stupid answers. That's the kind of answer that is just like so out of nowhere that you don't even really know how to respond to it. Not a teacher, but my friend drew a picture of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson as art homework when we were meant to be sketching rocks. Man, he's just showing off, going above and beyond. My friend's sister once wrote, "Birth control makes women smell bad so men won't sleep with her," in her biology exam. Hey, terrible body odor can be a pretty good birth control. My mom was a teacher. She was doing a geography quiz with her 7s and 8s. One of the questions was, what was the biggest island until Australia was discovered? One kid answered, trick question, Australia isn't real. This was a while ago, before Australia was classified as a continent. So Australia isn't real, then, Well then, my Australian viewers, you have some explaining to do. Well, we made it to the end. This has been such a long video that my camera is getting close to dying now. But we got lots of scary stories coming, starting this weekend, leading up to Halloween. And we'll be back to this stuff in a couple weeks. So, thanks for watching.